Rich Steeves, Managing Editor at TMC. I'm here at IT Expo Las Vegas 2013. Joining me now, Alan Percy of AudioCodes, where he's the Senior Director of Marketing. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So thank you for being here at IT Expo. We understand that you've got a big announcement that you announced here at the show.
Yeah, matter of fact, what we announced this morning was AudioCodes has a new network element for Microsoft Lync called a Resilient Branch Appliance. And this is an element designed to aid in survivability for enterprise and cloud applications with Microsoft Lync.
All right, so let's take that apart a little bit. You mentioned both enterprise and cloud. Let's take those one at a time. What does this mean for enterprises?
So enterprise, typically what happens in mid-size and large enterprise, it's not uncommon for them to have branch offices or remote sites. Good examples are banks. In education vertical, it's obviously schools, individual small, primary or secondary schools, or for colleges, larger campuses. In retail, it's big box stores, et cetera, et cetera. And the key thing for them is when they move to a UC environment, they need to have a story or strategy that explains to them, so what happens if we lose our wide area network? Is the store going to have to close, or can we provide some survivability? And the Resilient Branch Appliance, or RBA, as we call it short, takes the survivability story from Microsoft and enhances it with a wide area network survivability using either 4G LTE or using redundant consumer-grade internet connectivity.
So earlier you mentioned enterprise, you also mentioned cloud. What does this mean for cloud customers?
Yeah, so cloud, what happens with cloud implementations of Microsoft is essentially every customer becomes a branch because the core data center, of course, is in the cloud. A very similar sort of situation if they were to deploy Microsoft Lync in a cloud environment and they want to have some survivability, which again depends on the business, depends on the vertical market. Have different levels of credit, requirements for survivability. So the critical functions of providing phone-to-phone, emergency calling, E911, and then data backup with the RBA is really key for those cloud customers.
So this is a pretty exciting announcement. We've talked a little bit about it. Let's talk about how it's going to affect the marketplace.
Yeah, so what we see, as UC and Microsoft have started to deploy and participate in the marketplace a little bit more, there's some tougher challenges, right? We talked about these different verticals, and there's been some holdback by those verticals until some of these challenges have been resolved. So we think this is clearly one of the hurdles that needed to get over for wider deployment, much broader adoption of UC as we go forward. So we're very much looking forward to this expansion of the business. Yeah.
So survivability obviously has been a big topic, especially recently. We've had a lot of weather-related disasters. Superstorm Sandy is an example. What do you think has been the impact of all of those on this topic?
Well, I think really what's happened over this last 2 years, with some of the weather events as you mentioned, I think businesses have started to say, hey, wait a second here, what is my survivability story or strategy? A few years ago they might have said, well, we'll muddle along, and now they're realizing that it didn't work. Muddling along was not satisfy their customer needs and was not safe in many cases. So I think there's been a greater concern or investment in survivability. Certainly an awareness of it, and I think that when networks are being designed, they're starting to think more carefully about how do I, when I move to these new communication platforms, how do I make sure that my customers are safe, my employees are safe, and we can provide the emergency access and services necessary to keep them that way.
So obviously this is connected to Lync, and we know that Lync is a huge topic here at IT Expo and something we've been covering a lot. Lync migration is something that we talk about. Can you talk a little bit about the Lync migration? Sure.
So one of the things we've been working with some of our content providers also with is a website we set up called the linkmigration.com. And it's been a great sort of pool resource where we've been taking real case studies and stories and some thought leadership from some of the bloggers and thought leaders in the space. Be able to put it together a repository, some recorded webinars and other materials. We've had great readership and get great response from some of the participants, not only the contributors but also the readers. So it's been great, and obviously recommend folks would take a chance to spend some time there.
So we can find more information at linkmigration.com. Where else can we find more information?
Yeah, well, certainly our survivability story is one of the feature things as part of Lync Migration. We just posted a blog about that yesterday. but also too on the AudioCodes website, audiocodes.com/Microsoft is where is the landing page for most of the Microsoft topics.
Great. Alan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks so much for having me.